share screen. So we are going to look at the text of Vayera and try to comment it. And now I'm going to share the screen. Okay, here we go. So first phrase, straightforward. Vayedaber Elohim el Moshe vayomer elav ani Adonai. Okay, many times, right? The Torah portion. I love when my B'nai Mitzvah students say, I know where my Torah portion starts because it starts with Vayedaber Adonai, Vayedaber Elohim. Like, yeah, that's pretty much every other paragraph. So, okay. So, and God spoke to Moses and said to him, I'm the Lord. So right away, we have this dilemma. I mean, didn't Moses already know that God is God?
But maybe he was just hearing voices and didn't know who they belonged to.
These are a reminder.
Remind me, don't you forget.
I think that's it, emphasize it. There's a lot of that in the Torah, things are said twice or more.
Look at the phrase, like the first time it says Elohim, and the second time it says Adonai. What's the difference?
That's really emphasizing then, right? Isn't that two names for God?
So those two names for God, that's right.
Well,
And
to me, it speaks of strength when he says, I am the Lord, rather than just mentioning his name.
Right. Also, I think I mentioned at some point, one of our sessions, that there is a structure that is attributed to the Torah. It's hold on, EJPD. Have you heard of the formulation EJPD?
No.
Okay, great. So I'm glad I'll be the first one to tell you. So E stands for Elohim. J stands for Jehovah or Adonai. P stands for priests. And D stands for Dvarim, for Deuteronomy. So
what was the D?
Dvarim, Deuteronomy.
The what?
Dvarim, the Deuteronomy. So I taught that once at class at the B'nai Or, so maybe I'll do a session on that, or actually it's more than.
I'm not understanding the word. Could you say the word?
Deuteronomy. Dvarim. Dvarim is Hebrew for Deuteronomy.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So no problem. So E stands for Elohim, and that's how God appears to us most of the time in Genesis. Okay. If you will look in the text in Genesis, most of the referrals to God you will see as Elohim, not Adonai. Adonai appears a little bit later. Okay. So J stands for Adonai. P stands for priests, priesthood, because most of the Leviticus and Numbers, we have parts about the priests. So it's a theory that some professors try to develop in terms of proving who wrote the Torah, whether it was indeed dictated to Moses by God, or was it a bunch of scribes who were moved by divine? No one really knows. And so there was a proof already in 19th century that there were certain parts, for example, that are the stories that repeat themselves, like in the Genesis, for example, the story of creation, right? Or some other things that some other stories that repeat themselves, like there's parts in flood that repeat itself, and it's in a different style also. It's written in a different style. So that led to the experts to think, and those professors to think that is probably not the same person. Also, the big question is how Moses could have written the end of the Torah if it talks about like he's dying, right, in Deuteronomy, but Deuteronomy still goes on. So how Moses could have written that if he was already dead? Like post his, so in other words, they're looking at a lot of aspects of the Torah text and trying to see, you know, what are the sources. Plus, there are a lot of stories that are similar to the stories of the folk tales of the surrounding areas, such as flood, for example. It's not the first time, and I think we had that when we went over that. Remember, so that the story of the flood wasn't original either to the Torah. So they came up with this, like I said, 4 abbreviations, and looked at the Torah and they started dividing the Torah. Sometimes it's overlapping those parts, but they divided the Torah into those parts: Elohim, which is God as God appears in the beginning; Adonai, which is more like, you know, determined and God's name that appears a little bit later. And actually, that's how God presents himself to Moses. And then again, priests and Deuteronomy. So, but there's more overlapping in Leviticus. I would say a little bit of overlapping between Elohim and Adonai in Exodus. And Deuteronomy is mostly Deuteronomy, but also has Elohim and Adonai. Does it make sense? It's like really.
Isn't there a distinction between God of mercy and God of justice in those names?
Yes, but that's later, and that doesn't it doesn't have to do with the text and with this phrase that we're looking at.
But if God is knowing that the plagues are about to start, and here's part of the plan, which is really the first time in the whole Torah that we see justice being administered versus just creation and mercy.
Right.
Wouldn't it make sense here?
You know what? I think you're right, Dan. So because we will be looking at the plagues. Well, let's see if we can find something interesting in the commentary. So let's look at Rashi. I'll minimize the screen. How about, oops, back to here. Okay. Dan, could you read this one, this first one?
Hang on, I gotta move the Zoom picture over.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the first one, Rashi.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. Read the second one because that's I'm the Lord. Okay, yeah, the second
And
one.
he said unto him, I am the Lord, who am faithful to recompense with a full reward those who walk before me. Not have I sent you with no purpose in view. Awkward. but to fulfill the promise which I made to the early patriarchs. In this sense, we find the phrase is to be explained in many passages. What's that?
It's Ani Adonai. Ani Adonai.
Adonai, right, okay. Signifies, I am the Lord who am faithful to exact punishment when it is spoken in reference to a matter that demands punishment, as for instance, Leviticus, and thou profanest thy name of thy God, I am the Lord. And when it is spoken in reference to observing the divine commands, as in other part of Leviticus, ye shall keep my commandments and do them, I am the Lord. It signifies, I am the Lord who am faithful to give reward. So
in both instances is the significance of God, right? Adonai can be punishing and Adonai can be rewarding at the same time. Let's look at even, never mind, even Ezra is only in Hebrew and Delana is not here. Let's see if also in Hebrew. All right, so we should be content, maybe Sephorna in English. Oh, Sephorna in English, okay. Who wants to read Sephorna?
I'll read.
Okay, so it's Ani Adonai.
Ani Adonai, the one who maintains the entire universe all alone.
Okay,
I
so
have-
this is significant. One second. So that's also
Sure.
very important. So when we say God, right, and we say Adonai, it's Lord of the whole world. Elohim is more of a Hamish. Okay, keep going.
I have not only called it into existence, but I also maintain it. And there is no other prime cause which exercises any independent influence on any part of my universe. Compare
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah. Mhm.
Nehemiah. And you alone provide the nourishment to keep all creatures alive. Unless I had given my consent, no creature could continue to exist.
So based on those two commentaries, what do we think of the significance of Adonai, Ani Adonai in this case?
So conceited,
Say it again.
a little conceited.
Yes.
Every other word is a reference to Adonai or the Lord or himself, and the fact that he rules everything, and without his permission, you can't do anything.
Right.
I'll be
Right.
honest, I don't see a difference in the meaning. I mean, I see different names being used, almost like relating this to parents. Some people say mom, some say dad, some say
Nice.
daddy, some, the giver of goodness and the giver of punishment. Well, that's parents too. You give rewards, you give punishment, depending on the circumstance. And people have a lot of different names for their parents or grandparents, but it all boils down to the same thing, in my opinion.
Mhm.
You know, and in so many of our prayers, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. I mean, that kind of sums up a lot of names and descriptions of God.
Mhm.
Right. But you know that the Orthodox would say Hashem instead of Adonai.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
And why is that?
the name.
I mean, I don't know if you don't want to discuss that now.
No, it's okay. I think it comes from they really are so careful as to not pronounce God's name, so they just say Hashem.
The name.
The name.
That's the name. That means the name.
My daughter and her whole family will only say Hashem. They never speak any other name for God. They won't say God. They won't write it. They're more of an observant family. So that they say Hashem.
Mhm. And did I show you the from the same series of The Jews Are Coming? They have, I think I showed it to a couple of you, the whole song about it's not the name. That's not the name.
That was one on the
All
class.
God's names. Yeah, did I show it to you guys?
You showed it on.
Not,
Yes, I believe so.
It's
not
about
that one.
about the names.
No.
All right, maybe at the end if we have a few minutes, I'll do that. But do you want to see it now or you want to see it at the end?
No, stick with this.
All right, so let's continue. Let's continue. Maybe if we have time, I'll do it at the end. Okay, next phrase. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, but I did not make myself known to them by my name Adonai. So see, that is the significance. You want to see why? Let's see if we have commentaries on that.
What does actually El Shaddai mean, Rabbi?
El is again God. Shaddai is not terrible, but almighty. So all this epithets that we give to God, right? We have a whole bunch, and that's why I said that there's this song on what all the names. So
The thing is, he did
almighty. So Shaddai is almighty, like I said. Yeah.
sorry for the interruption.
Go ahead,
He
go
did
ahead.
appear to the patriarchs by that name. So this is probably what was said before. This is combining of different stories. In one story, he didn't call himself El Shaddai, and in this one he does and says,
Right.
yeah.
Right, that is that too. And so but also he wants to distinct Moses by saying, well, everybody else knew me as El Shaddai, but you now know me as Adonai, right?
Well,
As
he's
Lord. So
are you saying that he's making Moses more special?
perhaps, because Almighty versus Lord.
I'm sorry, I said it backwards.
And that's okay.
Okay.
Almighty
Yeah.
versus Lord. But Adonai also, it's not necessarily Lord. I mean, it's translated to English as Lord, but there is, I mean, the Hebrew for Lord is Adon. So maybe that's how the translation derived from the name, I mean, the word Adon in Hebrew, which is Lord, but Adonai is even more than Almighty. As we read in two previous commentaries, Adonai is someone who is also ruling, right? Ruling the punishment and ruling the rewards. So let's look into Rashi on that. Marcia, do you want to read
Which one?
the first one? By the name of God Almighty.
Oh, wait, I'm not seeing it all. Hold on.
It's right here.
Okay. By the name of God Almighty, I made certain promises to them. And in the case of all of these, I said unto them, I am God Almighty.
So in other words, as El Shaddai, he was making promises, right? He didn't yet tell either Abraham, Jacob, or Isaac, you should talk to people and tell them what I'm ruling, right? Moses is the first one who he talks to in terms of commanding and asking him to pass on his commandments. And when before he was only making promises to our patriarchs about their how they will multiply and how they will become a great nation, so on and so forth, right? But there were no
Rabbi,
yeah.
is it, could be this now is there's the expectation he really has a job for Moses to do. And he
Yes.
really wants Moses to take
Sure.
this responsibility seriously.
Certainly.
So it's maybe more now, man, as in this case, Moses, having to do something and not God just making things happen or providing, but now Moses.
Part of, I love it. I love it.
I don't see that, because with Abraham, he was told to go to Sodom and Gomorrah. He was told to take his son Isaac to sacrifice. So there were certain actions that God commanded right then and there.
No, but it's very different. But he was testing Abraham versus commanding him to pass on the commandments, those commandments to other people. It was
That's him as an individual. This Moses is now for a whole nation.
Exactly.
And with what Judy just said, I hadn't thought about it, but with what Judy just said, it's kind of like the beginning of part of what happens here is up to the people. Everything is not God's fault or God's goodness or whatever. We have a large determination. If Moses did what was asked and he did it well, there was one outcome. If Moses didn't do it or didn't do it well, there would be a different outcome, and it would be because of what man, or in this case Moses, did.
Right. So it's interesting, right? That play of the names between El Shaddai, Elohim, and now Adonai. Okay, let's look at the next phrase. Who wants to read verse 4?
or I'll read it. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they lived as sojourners.
So again, a different task of El Shaddai. He already, so this is something that he puts, this is a God who put the fundament to the Jewish faith, right? But then Moses, like you said before, not you, Bob, but others, now Moses has the task to carry on and to spread the word onto the whole nation that was enslaved also, let's not forget.
Did God really establish the covenant, or did God, in other words, was there a responsibility of the receivers of the covenant at that time? I don't remember it. I just remember God saying, I will do this.
If you follow my commandments. I mean, you know, covenant, I've always taken as a two-way street. Otherwise, why did Abraham do what he did? Why would he take Isaac up to sacrifice?
But he offers a lot of rewards, but well, I don't think he asked him to do anything specific except get out of where he lived, go to the new land.
But he was told to do certain things by God. I mean, very specific actions. So if that's not being, you know, Abraham's part of the covenant, I don't know what is, considering that he was the first.
Well, I think of the covenant at Mount Sinai, when there were all these responsibilities that were given to the Israelites.
Sure, very specific ones, but we evolved into that, but you have to start somewhere.
Right. No, it's both
Okay.
ways. It's both ways. Okay, let's go to the verse. Wait, however, verse 5. Somebody.
I'll read.
Okay.
I have now heard the moaning, I'm sorry. I have now heard the moaning of the Israelites because the Egyptians are holding them in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Continue.
Sure, yes.
Say therefore, as the Israelite people, I am the Lord, I will free you from the labors of the Egyptians and deliver you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and through extraordinary chastisements.
Right. So
here again, there are a lot of promises, but
Yeah.
at least at this point, God doesn't ask for anything in return.
True, and he says, so I will remember my covenant. So in other words, you know what led me to think, so how long were the Israelites moaning in the bondage, right, in Egypt?
Wasn't it hundreds of years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a long time if you think about it. You know, it's like when people, and I don't want to go deep into that, but like with Holocaust, you know, oftentimes we raise the question, where was God, right? So here it's like, wait a second, so you let people be in such a terrible condition for so long, and now you remember the covenant?
Mhm. Are you saying that the possibility that the Holocaust and the establishment of Israel could be part of that as
Possibly, if we believe in you know, God's hand, God remembered us again.
after a very long time, you know, and
But,
a lot of lives.
Right, Holocaust was 4 years. This was, although I'm sure much worse. But this bondage, you know, the slavery was for many, many more years. And where was God then? Why did she let Israelites suffer for so long until Moses, until he picked Moses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that perhaps God decided to take another name of Adonai to then carry on this redemption of people, right? From
And are you saying this is the first time he used the Adonai with the people before and not just Moses?
well, at least, yeah, it's the first time that he reveals himself as Adonai to Moses, and that happens during the burning bush, right? So he
Yeah.
reveals his name of Adonai, and now with his by his hand and through Moses, he will eventually deliver the Israelites from bondage.
Mhm.
So, and then we had, say therefore to Israelites, I'm the Lord. Again, so now he says to Moses, you tell, so I told you I'm Ani Adonai, I'm Lord. And now you go and tell other people that I'm the Lord. So there is a switch of a switch to action, I feel like, you know? What do you think?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
And so finally he promises, I will free you from labors of the Egyptians and deliver you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm through extraordinary, another word for that is miracles, right? Through extraordinary miracles. So, or the plagues that we're going to start now exploring. Almost there. Who wants to read verse 7?
I will.
Okay.
And I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God.
Wait, hold on. So let's see here. So wait, and before that they weren't his people?
And I
So,
thought that was affirmed with Abraham in the beginning of the covenant.
right. So I actually never thought of that way. So if God says, and I will take you to be my people and I will be your God, then it makes sense why he was absent for so long. It's just we don't know why. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the present, and it's it takes it all these steps further, because once they're redeemed or freed from slavery, there's all the redemption and revelation at Sinai and all these other things that haven't happened yet, but will be happening.
So I have a question. And excuse my ignorance, but as I say, I guess this is how you learn. Is there any time before this where God is responsible for a whole group of people to assist? In other words, we were kind of alluding before, Abraham, God's relationship with individuals, but here all the Israelites are together, presumably in Egypt, and he's saying he's going to help free them. Is there any time before that where he is
Like a whole nation? No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so is that in itself significant?
Absolutely.
I think
I'm
this
sorry.
is the first time that God makes himself known to the world, as
Right.
opposed to
Right.
the family.
So
Individually.
maybe that's why it's so much again, and I am your God, I am the Lord, where not that he wasn't saying that before, but not quite emphasizing it again in such a major way, the way he is now.
Right.
I have a question. Judy just said that, all the Israelites were together in Egypt. Were there not any, whatever you want to call them, Israelites, Jews, whatever, in other parts of the land that weren't in Egypt?
I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
I'm sure, of course they were.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like logically, right?
Right. This is
but-
just the group that was captured or born in this
Well,
land.
They were all descendants from the
Oh, from
70,
Jacob.
from
Yeah.
the 70 of Jacob's family
Yes.
that went during the famine. They settled in Goshen, I believe it was, and then all of a sudden, the new Pharaoh rose, and that 70 produced I don't know, hundreds of thousands.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
what they were the ones that became enslaved. So, I don't see how there would be Israelites outside of, unless they left before slavery.
Right.
I gotta drop out.
But maybe a couple here and there left.
Right.
I mean, it's just natural. Okay, can we move on?
Shall I keep reading or not?
Sure, read one more.
And I will bring you unto the land which I've sworn to give you to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you for possession. I, the Lord.
Okay, so for hundreds of years, right? The Israelites were in Egypt. At least the whole descendants of Jacob and his sons.
How does Moses know about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Did God keep repeating it to make him aware? Because he was never brought up among Jews. He was brought up among the Egyptians and the Midianites.
Burning bush.
Well, it's like how did Jacob pray? Where would he know the prayers? But the rabbis in the Midrash say that Jacob studied Torah, right? What Torah?
Right.
So
It was written down, right?
yeah, so similarly, with Moses, we assume that somehow he acquired this knowledge, I don't know, with the milk of his mother, first 8 days.
Well, it's a bigger mystery how Moses knew he had a brother Aaron to go find.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Lots of unanswered
I
questions.
mean,
Not yet, he hasn't-
in the Torah, it's like an on Broadway musical. There is a scene of something happening, and then 5 years later, right? The next scene is like 5 years later. I'm just giving an example. So same with the Torah, we have sometimes a very detailed description of a certain event or events, and then moving forward, just like a jump between the Genesis and to Exodus, from the time when Joseph was the right hand of Pharaoh to Exodus, where Pharaoh came who didn't know Jacob. Oh, and Joseph, who didn't know Joseph. And
What?
so,
Sorry.
yeah, and so it's a huge jump in the history.
Wasn't there also something where at the burning bush, God says, go back to Egypt and tell the elders of the Israelites, this is my name, and my name is like I am who I will be, or something.
Yeah.
And that was coded language. And that's how Moses has the legitimacy that he's getting all this from God.
Right.
In discussing how he knew he had a brother and sister, wasn't there a point when he found out he was not really descendant of Pharaoh, that he did find his biological mother, and it was from her?
There's no description of a reunion, but somehow, perhaps, and again, it's all our guesses, perhaps his adopted mother, who, according, to Midrash, Moses was wrapped in the talit, right? So she didn't show it. And so, she probably showed it to him. We can hypothesize that perhaps she told him about the family, maybe, How did you know?
She does nurse him, right?
She
Doesn't,
nursed him.
yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah.
little, but
She hired a Jewish nurse, remember?
Yeah,
So,
and it was supposedly his mother.
right, wasn't that
That's
the
what I
case?
heard.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
That's according to Midrash.
Oh, okay, I got you. Well, but that woman was Jewish, right?
Right. The
So
woman who
maybe
hired
again, at
the
least for
second
those
that
first
she hired a
couple
Jewish
years.
woman, right?
Yeah.
So somehow he figured it out.
I don't know. It's, I think, in our DNA anyway, in my
Well,
opinion.
why did he kill the Egyptian taskmaster if he didn't feel some sympathy, empathy, whatever, to the Israelite slaves? So he identified with them.
It shows us by then that he probably already had some information about his roots.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, always surprises me how, and just led me to think the recognition of smells. Even though we didn't have Passover Seder in Russia, but the first time I was invited to Passover Seder in Israel, like I knew the smell. And there's a very specific smell of a Passover table. There's, no other meal that smells like that. The horseradish and I don't know, the combination, the matzah and the horseradish of this combination and the taste of it is just, somehow I recognize that. So there are some things that are in the DNA, I think.
Yes.
Okay, verse 9, somebody.
I'll do it. But when Moses told this to the Israelites, they would not listen to Moses, their spirits crushed by cruel bondage. This has been cited as one reason for God not demanding something of them before that they were slaves under bondage. And, what can you do with slaves? They weren't a nation yet. And they were not able to respond to specific demands.
They were not ready to shake off their bondage. They were like, they were so used to their existence that I think that's the reason they wouldn't listen to Moses, because they weren't ready to enter a new reality. They, as much as they suffered, but at the same time was familiar.
But they weren't freed yet at this point, were they?
No. It's
Right.
It's before the plagues. No, it's
Right. So they're kind of like, well, we've been in such terrible place at this point. Why should we, think anything more better is there out there?
right.
It could be worse, huh?
So they weren't really excited by Moses's proposition yet, right? Do you want to look
The
at the
proposition is what he's saying, that you're going to be freed, right? And they didn't believe him. Is that what you mean?
Well,
yes?
they're also comfortable with the status quo, as bad as it was. They knew what to expect, which is human nature in a lot of ways.
And they
Right.
really did not know Moses. I mean, it wasn't like he was a popular figure with them. All of a sudden, there's just this person telling them, and perhaps he was asking them to do things that would endanger them even more.
People are afraid of change a lot of times.
Well, they
You don't
could
know,
not
you don't
imagine.
know what to expect. So, hey, I'll stay with what I'm doing.
Unless people are forced to, like if we were told a year ago that we will have our sessions via Zoom, probably a lot of people would have been against it, right? And now I bet you, even when we will be able to come out from our houses, a majority would be still it would prefer to join activities via Zoom because it's so convenient. So
Not me. I can't wait to be amongst
I know.
people.
I know.
Hey.
Me too, but
I'm
some,
with you, Judy.
Well, some people say that the very outgoing people enjoy a lot of people around them, but there are other people who are more quiet, and they like, this isn't quite as terrible as it is for people who have to have congregations of people around them. So it's different for different people, right?
again, we were forced into this new reality, and if it wouldn't be for the pandemic, I think that a lot of people would have been reluctant to do that and to learn the new ways. And yet, because we were forced into that, we sort of did that. So the Israelites were, I don't know if it's a good parallel, but the Israelites were reluctant because they were used to certain ways. Bob, continue. Bob, do the 3 more verses, 10, 11, and 12.
Can I go on?
Yeah, I don't know where to. Bob, can you see verse 10, 11, 12?
I can read it.
Okay, go ahead.
Good.
The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Go and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites depart from his land. But Moses appealed to the Lord, saying, the Israelites would not listen to me. How then should Pharaoh heed me, a man of impeded speech?
Yes, so here, I don't want to dwell on that because we actually have only 10 minutes left and we didn't even get yet to the plagues themselves. Okay, so Ellen, you wanted to read, so why don't you take verse 13?
Okay. So the Lord spoke to both Moses and Aaron in regard to the Israelites and the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, instructing them to deliver the Israelites from the land of Egypt.
Go on, next one.
The following are the heads, of their respective clans. The sons of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, Enoch and Palu, Hezron and Carmi. Those are the families of Reuben.
All right, let's keep that and let me get to the plague.
It's interesting, Rabbi, how we don't hear anything about Aaron, and then all of a sudden he's there with Moses.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying before.
Okay.
I said, how did we know Aaron?
Sorry with your brother and one. Sorry, I'm getting there. You commanded your brother to harden Pharaoh heart. Okay, here is I will harden Pharaoh time that I have my multiple. When Pharaoh. Okay, when is the plague? Come on. When the Egyptians this is the part where the rod turned into a serpent to convince Pharaoh. Look at the verse 12, 11 and 12. Then Pharaoh, for his part, summoned the wise men and the sorcerers, and the Egyptians magicians in turn did the same with their spells. Each cast down his rod, and they turned into serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed their rods. That was before the 10 Commandments. Remember? So
For the 10 plagues.
I mean, template.
yeah, before the plagues, this was the first thing that Moses and Aaron were trying to convince Pharaoh by presenting this miracle, right? But then the wise men did the same, but their rod swallowed the wise man's rod.
And the rod turned back, Moses's rod turned back into a rod.
Into a rod, exactly.
This is the second time those serpents are referred to since creation. It's not that they were just snakes or something.
Here we go. Okay, finally.
Bob, is there a difference that you see in that between serpents and snakes? I'm not sure if one's a synonym for the other, or
I don't know.
I didn't catch
I'll
your
be
question.
honest with you. I don't know the difference.
it's interesting to think about. You're talking about the serpent that tempted Eve.
Tanim or something like that.
Okay, here we go. The first plague. Okay, verse 20. Who wants to read?
I'll read.
Oh, I could try. I could read also.
All right, go ahead.
Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded. He lifted up the rod and stuck the water in the Nile in the sight of Pharaoh and his courtiers. And all the water in the Nile had turned into blood.
So we'll only have time for one plague. But that's quite a plague, right? To start with, that all the water turned into blood. Here's my question. If couldn't God get away with just one big plague? Why would God have to send 10 plagues to convince Pharaoh?
Otherwise, it'd just be seen as a possible natural disaster and not really the work of God, because God can bring the plague, and God can make the plague go away.
Mhm.
And there can be all kinds of disasters. I mean, this is only the first of 10. And, you can just sort of say it's natural coincidence.
And this isn't against people. This is against, as Donnie was saying, nature.
Yeah, but it is against people because
Yeah,
you can't drink from the Nile.
Well, that's
It's blood.
correct, but then the other things he does where the firstborn,
But
other
that's the last
things.
one.
Well, that's true.
But
Okay,
everything
mind.
else are natural occurrences, whether it's locusts, frogs,
That's
boils,
true.
whatever. These are,
This is,
it seemed
this is
to
also,
Mhm.
there's
reinforce.
also a contest between the Israelite God and the other gods. The Nile was considered a god to the Egyptians, as was Pharaoh. So this kind of hits home.
And the first 5 plagues, Pharaoh hardens his own heart. And in the last 5 plagues, Pharaoh is no longer in control of how he reacts. His heart is hardened
By God.
by
Mhm.
God.
Mhm. But every time God hardens, it says God hardens Pharaoh's heart, not that Pharaoh.
Well, I think in the first 5 plagues, it just
Yeah.
says Pharaoh's heart was hardened.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Well, see, because I think there's at some point, isn't there a dialogue between God and Moses, and God says, Pharaoh's not going to give in, and I'm going to make sure, that he knows that I'm the one in charge.
Well, it took him quite a few examples before he gave in. It wasn't until his own son was jeopardized, right?
Even after that, he chased after the Israelites anyway. So,
Yeah, exactly. So then the second one is frogs. And every time he would have refused to let people go. But again, why? And this is a frequent question that is asked when we look at this Torah portion, and the next one. Why couldn't God just do one time and be done?
For me, sometimes you want to start off, if you want something done, you don't start off with the worst things. You start off with some small things and see if people will accommodate to them. And then keep on going and making it harder and harder. So that you
Give it a chance to redeem
give them
themselves.
chances to so that you don't have to do the worst.
I think he wanted to make it clear that he was God. And if you didn't learn the first time and you didn't learn the 5th time, you learn the 10th time.
Or think about how many years after what had happened, or not, but let's say it happened, how many generations later we still talk about these plagues. So perhaps the goal was to show not only Jews, but not only Egyptians, but all the world for the future years to come, because God is I will be eternal, right? God is eternal. So projecting to the future so that we continue to teach that and people will continue to remember what has happened to Egyptians.
Yeah,
Because-
every year at the Seder, we repeat the story with the plague. So it goes on and on.
and it
No,
also,
maybe this wasn't, maybe it was 10 plagues, not just to get Pharaoh to believe, but to get the Israelites to believe. Because sometimes, you can see something like in today's world, you see something and people say, no, you didn't really see it. That really didn't happen. But maybe when 10 things happen, it's like, you know what? Maybe things really are not what we thought, but this really is someone above us taking care of things or doing things.
Mhm.
there's also a lesson of compassion that comes out of all this, because you just asked the question, why 10 plagues? And we're all wrestling with it. And at our Seder, we diminish our wine cups when we repeat the plagues. And it's the sense that, other people have suffered as a result of these things, and they may have been just caught up and innocent. And anyone can be a victim, and we need to have compassion in that case.
Mhm.
And to go with what Don just said, I can't quote it exactly, but somewhere near the end of the plagues, when after the Red Sea has come back over the Egyptians, and Egyptian and Israelites are cheering, somewhere God says, you know, these are my people who died as well. Don't share that anyone had to die. I'm sorry that someone, so the mercy that you were talking about.
Yes, yes.
Right. So we have a couple of minutes left. Can I show you this video?
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, even those of you who watched it, still, I think it's fun. I hope that I can find it. Hold on. Oh.
I had seen that one you showed us about the circumcision. I thought that was hysterical.
So they have a whole bunch. Hold on, I'll stop sharing so I can find and then wait, and then I'll show it to you. It's like, okay.
While we're waiting, just for those of you who don't know, Alan took a 7 to 8 foot fall and fractured several vertebrae in his neck and his back.
So Arlene, he doesn't need surgery at this point?
Not at this point. On the 20th, he's seeing the spinal surgeon again, and we'll see what they say.
He was wearing a brace last night, I noticed.
Yes, that's
Okay, found it. Hold on. Wait, hold on. It's in Hebrew, but you'll get the idea.
באותיות שהפכו לעינוי במקום לומר אותן בכינוי כמו אדון עולם רחום וגם רחמן יש דיין אמת שכינה רוח הקודש הם לקחו נורא קשה שטות שאמרת פעם על ההר למשה לא תישא את שמי לשווא אבל אל תתנהג כאילו אין לי שם שקוראים לי קוראים לי שמעיה וגם שדי ואלוהים זה לא השם כן יש לי שם הוא לא השם קוראים לי אבא קוראים לי קבא או אדוני וגם הדושן זה לא השם כן יש לי שם הוא לא השם אוכל כליות זה בכלל טעות, אני ישות אלוהית ולא מכון דימות, דיין של אלמנות עושה לי אנטי, ואלוהי צבאות סתם מיליטנטי. י' וה' היה נחמד, אם הייתי מחלטר בתור סוכן מוסד, כן, אז לא נושאים אותו לשווא, אבל למען עצמי אולי תאמרו את השם. שם קוראים לי צור, קוראים לי אל עליון, ההשגחה או יקובק, זה לא השם, כן יש לי שם, הוא לא השם, קוראים לי מלך, מלכי המלכים, וזה ברור שאני השם, אך יש לי שם, כן יש לי שם, הוא לא השם, כן יש לי שם. אולי תקראו לי יהוה.
Nice.
That was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Native people out there.
חבר'ה, התרגשות גדולה.
Oh, wait, hold on.
מה השתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות?
I need
בכל
to.
הלילות, שרים שירים יפים.
Oh, I don't know how to exit
אבל
this.
היום,
All right, so we have to finish.
אלון,
Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank
so good.
everybody.